Okay, so the new year is with us. And this month's topic is, this is one of my pet peeves actually about recovery, is conformity. Like people just do stuff because somebody else tells them to do it. You know, go to 90 meetings in 90 days, even though you have no idea why you're doing it or whether you think it's a good idea. Well, somebody told you to do that, so, well, they must be right, let's go do it. Things like that, but there's no real personal investment in it, and I don't know. It seems to be a waste of time a lot. I mean, I was in a recovery house. In a lot of ways, I think it was just like a glorified babysitting experience, right? Just keep everyone busy, so you had to go to a meeting every day. Every night you had to go to a meeting. At any rate, as I said, one of my pet peeves. But interestingly enough, I was reading Oprah's magazine, and don't ask me why I was reading it. I was reading it. Okay. And but the really fascinating thing about Oprah's magazine is it's got this article, and they quoted this famous Canadian psychologist, guy by the name of Bruce Alexander at Simon Fraser University. And Alexander is really fascinating. He's won tons of awards for his work in addiction, but he has a sort of a different view of things. Anyway, one of his big things is like he was looking at all these experiments that the scientists were doing with rats and drugs, and the typical experiment is, you know, they put this rat in a cage, and then they give this rat the choice: do you want to drink water, or do you want to drink water laced with morphine? And the typical experiment concludes that, well, the rat tries the water, and not very good. Well, let's go for the morphine. Oh, this is good stuff. And then we'll just keep taking the morphine, forgetting about eating, sleeping, everything. Okay? And this is used as proof that the effect of morphine on the brain of the rat just takes over the rat, and the rat loses control. And as I said, it doesn't even bother eating or sleeping or doing anything anymore. Okay, so this is evidence, technically speaking, this is evidence of what we call the disease model. And the disease model says that the chemical effect of the morphine on the brain just takes over the poor rat, and the rat loses any choice. It robs him of any ability to make a good, healthy choice. And the argument is that it is actually this biological effect. So it's not like the rat is rebelling against society or anything like that. No, he's just overwhelmed by this chemical called morphine and the effect of morphine on his brain. Okay, well, Alexander looked at that experiment and he wasn't too impressed with it. In fact, he began thinking, you know, if I were a rat and I'm stuck in this boring psychology lab day after day in this tiny little cage, I'm thinking maybe morphine wouldn't be that bad. So what Alexander did, because he didn't really like the experiment, is he made what he called Rat Park. It's this 200 square foot park, and it's designed for rats. In the Oprah article, the writer said, well, you know, the rat was free to do anything. If the rat wanted to write a letter to the editor of the rat newspaper complaining about it, you know, he could do that at Rat Park. I mean, so it was just a community of rats, and then they just got to do whatever rats do to have fun, and, you know, and no doubt there were little conflicts and everything else that happens in rat society. Anyway, do you notice this fascinating thing? In Rat Park, if he gave the rats a choice between the morphine and water, that they would always go for the water. It was really fast. So he thought that was curious, and he said, well, maybe they didn't like the taste of the morphine. Well, Alexander knew that rats had a sweet tooth, right? So he even sweetened the morphine to make it really appealing to the rats. Still, they went for the water. Fascinating, eh? He even took rats who were addicted, the ones from the cage actually, and stuck them in Rat Park. And immediately, so they were officially addicted, they were going to go through withdrawal and everything. At any rate, he even noticed these addicted rats, given the choice between morphine and water, took the water. Well, that's interesting, eh? And so his explanation for this was that The rat in the cage, look at it, he's lonely, he's isolated, he's not free to do what he wants, he's forced to live his life as this psychologist is, demanding he live. And yet, when you take him out of that atmosphere and give him some freedom, give him some space, let him hang around with his rat buddies, the drugs serve no purpose. That's really an interesting experiment. Because I'm thinking, like, this is, as you know, it's one of the main themes of Sunshine Coast Health Center is, what kind of life do you want to lead, right? And if you go out and lead that life, then drugs will lose their appeal. Even though, and this is true, even though, we all have the special brain and all that. So that's all true. But if you're living a life that you want, that you personally want, then drugs lose their appeal. That's the key point, right? So it becomes really quite interesting, is that, on the other hand, if you are forced to go to 6 meetings a week and you really hate the meetings, and you're reading your daily meditation, not because you think it's a good idea, but because, oh, geez, well, they told me and it's part of my plan, geez, I better do it, and all that kind of stuff, there's this huge difference. And a lot of people who feel forced to do things in recovery because somebody else tells them to do them, very often they crash and burn. And that's just one of those facts. So this is a good lesson, right? So in this week's online program, we talk about, like, being yourself, having the freedom, and not to be conformist, not to do things just because someone else told you to do. Because one of the keys to recovery is to have the freedom to live the life. And Bill Wilson, for those of you who go to 12-step programs, he knew this to perfection. That's why Bill Wilson always maintained, go out and get a life, the life that you personally want. That will be one of the keys to your recovery. At any rate, that's this week's online program, so have a read through it. If you're interested, answer the questions and shoot them off to us. And we'll talk to you next week.